adapt. A lot of businesses fail to adapt or to be flexible to the environment we can't control. You've got to adapt your marketing strategy.
That a remote job now gets, on average, about 3 times as many applications as a local job.
Your brand, your backyard in economic challenges.
And if you don't have $1,000 a month put in $10 a month.
Right.
If you have 10,000 a month, put in 10,000, but don't wait until some future point. You're killing yourself.
I get that you want to cut back, but talk about cutting off your right arm to save your left arm. It makes no sense. Our goal is not to monetize this, but simply to educate. If we can help one business owner, one marketing professional, that's all we want to do. All right, welcome back. Nick, it is great to see you. I'm really excited to dive into this new episode and the content that we have here today for our listeners, as I think the timing of this episode and what we're going to be discussing today, the topic is so relevant right now because of what is going on in today's world. And so our topic, Nick, you and I came up with this as you're starting a business and I'm starting a business, but thriving regardless of outside environment. So I know that you are, what'd you say? You're down in Florida right now? It's like, where's Waldo? You're always
Yeah, still down in Florida. We surprised and took the kids to Great Wolf Lodge for a night, and then we're in Florida down here at the beach and wrapping up our spring break. So getting ready to head back. I thought I'd wear a hat like you today. You've always got a different hat on, so I'm like, I'm going to throw a hat on today as well. So yeah, I'm excited about diving into this because my experience with all these gray hairs, now the gray beard, as soon as you feel like you know what's going on, things get thrown around. In fact, I was watching on one of the social medias earlier today, and it was kind of a little meme, and it was a video that said, as a business owner, just when you think you're going to have a good day, and then it's like 3 people right on the back of a tube in the lake, and it hits a wave, and the 3 people just get ejected, and they're just flying through the air. And I think that's really business. When you start feeling like, oh, things are smooth on autopilot, you better be ready to get kicked in the face because something's coming. And so I think it's just a really important topic that we did into a little bit of the technical, but also just the mindset. And I think it really ties in well with the podcast we had last week with our guest MJ.
Yeah, that's right. And when we think about this, and we'll peel back this onion a little bit, right? We've got the overall economy, right? We're not economists. We're not going to get too deep into that. We've got elections and COVID and war and interest rate environments and the stock market, recessions or housing market, whatever is going on. What I do know to be true, Nick, is it's out of our control. So we've got to really hone in and make sure that we have a solid business plan, marketing strategy, financial. So that's all that we're gonna cover in a lot of stuff today. Before we dive in, we've got to talk sports because we got the Masters going on. Are you watching any of that?
I have not watched it yet. I was working on some other stuff today, and I'm like, hey, it's Masters weekend, so I'm sure I'm gonna catch some of it, catch some of the highlights tonight. But yeah, I have not yet, but I'm sure I'm going to yet here this weekend.
Yep, I watched a little bit of it yesterday in my downtime, and then last night watched our Colorado Avalanche win again. So for the hockey fans, it's pretty exciting to be an Avalanche fan right now. And DU, University of Denver, beat Michigan, #1 Michigan, last night in double overtime. That was exciting. Are you a hockey fan?
I'm not really. My son just graduated college. He was a lacrosse fan, but I never really got into hockey. So I watched all the traditional sports, and I got really into lacrosse. But hockey is the one that I never really never got into following.
Yeah. It's more of the recent for my wife and I within, I would say, probably the last 5 years. And we really, really like it. It's exciting. So speaking of
Yeah,
exciting, you ready to dive in?
I am. So, and I wanted to kick it off. So, okay, just talking a little about the good old fashioned 4 letter word in business, and that is luck. And, the reality is, as business owners, nobody likes to talk about this, but sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And so, one of the things you mentioned, Jeremy, was the economy, right? And we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, listen, if you opened a sit down restaurant right before COVID hit, that's really bad luck. Sorry, right? That's what it is. But there's also sometimes, like if you're a realtor, when the economy takes off and everybody's buying a house left and right, or you're in the mortgage industry, there's some luck there too. So if you look back over historically the last 30, 40, 50 years, there's been ups and downs economies. There's been political shifts. There's been social shifts. There's been all kind of things that have happened, but businesses some continue to hold steady,
Mhm.
some thrive, some shrivel away and die.
Mhm.
Some, they survive, but they're a shell of themselves.
Yep.
Some adapt well. And so one of the things that we do have to be aware of is that sometimes there's luck is on your side and you just fall into things. And that's great when that happens. And sometimes luck isn't on your side. So we want to help everyone prepare. What if luck doesn't go your way? What if, the things that you were expecting to happen didn't go the way that you wanted them to? How do you deal with those things? Not just technically, what do you say and how do you get out of it, but how do you deal with the feeling of being crushed? You're like, man, I put all this time and energy into starting this business or running this business, and now I get to this thing. This is the last thing I need. How do you deal with that mentally? So, you want to kind of kick us off on that? I mean, you've certainly seen this and been through this. So, what are your thoughts on how do you deal with that emotional baggage that comes with running a business?
Man, it's so hard, and we have to just we have to stay so sturdy and stable personally, right? Mentally focused is what comes to mind. And as you were just talking, Nick, the one word that I just wrote down that I want to park on this for a second is adapt. A lot of businesses fail to adapt or to be flexible to the environment that again we can't control. So let's take a look here. What I know to be true, and let's talk about consumer spending and consumer confidence.
Hmm.
Because let's get specific to your handyman business and my painting company. Because homeowners, are there going to be things that go wrong with your home?
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything else, right? It's just like our bodies are going to break down, our homes are going to break down, our cars are going
Right.
to break down. We
Right.
know those things are true, and that's never going to change.
Yes.
When we think about discretionary spending, really where you see a lot of that is, people that are living paycheck to paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're barely scraping by, what's the first thing to go? Well, the first thing to go is going out to eat or
Mm-hmm.
buying new clothes or a new TV or going on vacation, that traditional discretionary spending that people think about, right? But if you're in a position where I'm not worried about paying the mortgage this month and we can still go out to eat, we can still go on vacation. Those people tend to say, you know what? I'm still going to take care of my home. I'm still going to take care of my health. I'm still going to take care of my kids. They're not going to sacrifice their home simply because the timing isn't good, or they're not going to say, well, I'm not going to go to the doctor. I get it if somebody goes, I don't have any money and I don't have the option. I can either buy groceries or take my kid to the doctor this week. That's a horrible place to be in. But
Right.
for the majority of people, that's not really where they're at on a day-to-day basis. And so that does play in. But when you listen to the media, it can be very slanted one way or the other. The economy's far better than when it really is, or far worse.
Yeah.
Again, depending which channel you're watching, even or which day you're watching it.
That's right. And think about this. Let's talk about COVID because that was a terrible experience, I think, for everybody or most everybody. But did we
Hmm.
stop eating during COVID?
I certainly didn't. You can probably tell. I've never had a problem with that.
Did we stop going to the dentist or
Yeah.
cutting our hair? Right? We could go on and on and on. Now, for some people, sure, they had to pivot a little bit. I get it. I understand. If you're the restaurant in economic hardship times, who do you target? We all eat, but you're going to
Yeah.
target the people that still have the money, right?
Yep.
Sure, maybe the lower middle class might be a little tighter, all right? Their 401k is not growing as much, or maybe racking up credit card debt to get through. Okay, so you've got to pivot, you've got to adapt your marketing strategy,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I say, well, sometimes that means your product itself might change. Sometimes that mean you can go with the restaurant example. Maybe, hey, we become a takeout restaurant versus a sit down restaurant. Sometimes it's, maybe it's the payment options you have available might
Okay.
change. Or maybe in the past you've never had to offer that, but now all of a sudden you need to go and partner with a finance company that's going to offer 6 months same as cash or year same as cash, that maybe people would need to be able to still afford your product, right? And
Mhm.
so you have to look at other options out there that maybe you wouldn't have done in the past. Just be aware of that.
Yeah. What I know to be true is when something's up, something's down. And when something's down, something's up. right? You've got high interest rates, so it slows the real estate market down a little bit. But the stock market, certainly before the recent war that we're going through, stock market was at an all-time high. I was meeting with business owners to, help them grow their business and doing some consulting, and I kept hearing, and I pay pretty close attention to the market and economic environments and stocks and trades and doing stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff. So I pay pretty close attention, but a few clients were like, yeah, I'm not going to do a whole lot right now because we're in a recession. And I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't understand, because everything that I'm seeing is that the market was at an all-time high. But I couldn't wrap my head around
Mm-hmm.
the angle or the information or where they were coming from. It just made no sense to me, right?
Yeah, and I would see this again, same thing, consulting and talking to business owners. Every 4 years, when the election was coming up, presidential election, you would have a certain number of businesses who were like, we're just going to hold tight right now to see what happens in the election. And it was funny because my conversation with them was always the same. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So let me ask you a question. If your candidate wins, what are you going to do the next day? And they go, well, we're gonna be happy. And okay, and what's gonna be your business? Well, we're gonna do this, this, and this. Okay. And if your candidate loses, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna shut down your business? Like, no. I'm like, so you're gonna still come in and run your business, right? So the reality is, whether your candidate, the party you want to win, the candidate you want to win, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to run your business. Now, if
Yeah.
this candidate wins, it might mean that there's a little more economic, fluidity. They might be a little more pro business, or this party might be a little more regulation. So you might have to make some little shifts along the way. But the
Mhm.
reality is, you're going to run your business every day until the election, and you're going to run your business the day after the election. So what does it really matter what happens in politics? And you would see people's eyes like, huh, I never really thought about it that way.
Yep.
But sometimes people are just told, well, there's uncertainty, so you have to be in a holding pattern. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't really work as a business owner, because when you're in a holding pattern for 3 months or 6 months and your competitors are not, you're actually falling behind. So any good business owners will know, like, you cannot just hold serve. You have to be playing aggressively. You have to be trying to win all the time, because there are some people out there that are, and you can't be one of those just sitting on the sidelines waiting and watching.
Right. And that's when you become that shell, right?
Hmm.
And that's a good segue. Let's talk about financial discipline and cash flow. Actively monitoring expenses and trim overheads to do not to contribute to the core value. Ensure more cash is coming in than going out. Like, that seems pretty basic, right? Pretty elementary. However, how often do we see businesses get tight, cash flow? But I think that is all about making sure that you have a solid foundation financially for your business, that you can not just survive but thrive. You've got the capital, you can ramp up your marketing strategy, and we're going to get more into that too. But I think that's so important, right?
Yeah, and I think you have to just go into it much like it's sports. If you are a coach of a sports team and you go with the mindset of like, well, as long as we stay healthy, we'll be able to, have a good season, do this, that, and the other. I think those coaches are doomed to get fired. I think every good coach in America is like, yeah, we're going to have injuries. Key players are going to go down. The people we were counting on, some of them are not going to be here because of whatever, right? There's going to be a legal issue. There's going to be an academic issue. There's going to be an injury. We're trying everything we can to reduce that risk. But the reality is, we know that there's going to be a certain number of injuries, and we're going to have people that we have to on the fly adjust to. And that's why the really great coaches are always worried about that second and third tier line, because they know that just because you've got the stars in place doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. And so I think it starts with that mindset of not, I hope we don't have any snags. You are going to have something blow up. And if you do not have cash put away, you do not have resources, if you don't have that line of credit already set up, it's like trying to get a line of credit when you have no money and you have a debt run up. It's impossible. You've got to get the line of credit when you're going well, even if you don't use it. And so you have to go with that expectation of, there are going to be challenges and we are going to hit financial difficulties. So we better prepare for it now. I don't know when it's going to come, but it's coming.
Yep. Yeah. It's like a squirrel gathering nuts, gearing up
Mhm.
for winter, right? That's how we have to look at savings and cash flow, right? Ample amount of money in the bank, zero debt when things are going well, right? Ride the high, be smart about the money, tuck it away, have access to fresh credit cards if things, start slowing down, or that line of credit if, a machine or a van or whatever breaks. Have access to capital, and that way when things pick back up again, cash flow starts coming in, you pay it all down, right? So on and so forth. So I think that's a great
Mhm.
strategy. You want to take us into the next point?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and before we dive in, just as side thought here, I think as you talk about this, right, and I'm sure people listening is like, wow, they're not painting a very rosy picture of being a business owner. Well, guess what? Let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about being an employee in corporate America right now.
Hmm.
So here's the environment of corporate America. Because there's so many more remote jobs now, I just saw a stat this week that a remote job now gets on average about 3 times as many applications as a local job. So they're no longer competing with somebody in locally, you're competing with people all over the country. So that's one big challenge. The job market is much harder to get a job. Number two, because of automation, 10, 15 years ago, you applied somewhere, a human being read your application and looked through that. Now, virtually none of the applications are being read by humans. Almost all of it is ATS systems, and a lot of times now, even if what they're doing is they're running it through the AI ATS system. They're assigning a score to you, and then based on the score, then it gets to another scrub before a human ever sees it. So a lot of times it's two layers of scrubbing by AI, if and when a human even gets to it.
Sure.
And so again, one of the stats I was looking at, they were talking about, higher paying jobs, corporate America jobs. The average they're getting is over 2,000 applications, and they're averaging doing 10 live interviews out of 2,000 applications. So it's incredibly challenging. So people think, well, gosh, this doesn't necessarily sound. Nick and Jeremy are talking about rosy running business. We're talking about challenging things. The economy out there is challenging, right? And no, I should say the economy, the work economy is what I mean to say by that. Working corporate America is tough, right? Working other places is tough too. And so that's why we're seeing a shift more and more and more away from people wanting to work in corporate America and more into I want to run my own business. The problem is they don't know how to do it. They don't have the resources for it. So we're trying to prepare people for those times and those techniques that you would need. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think one of the things that we have to look at is, things like, you mentioned before the war, right? So right now, military issues, and people can be very, very politically divided, right? There's going to be some people that are, no matter what it is, anytime you have military involved, there's going to be some people are going to be very, very for that. You're going to have some people who are very, very against that. You have some people that are kind of apathetic to it. And they're going to be kind of in the middle. And that can really go a direction. So one of the things I would warn every person on here is to be aware of that you can realistically think that half the people out there are going to be for a cause and half people are going to be against a cause, right? When you make your business platform about what your personal feelings are, yes, you can pick up some traction with people that maybe agree with you politically, but you also can alienate 50% of your client base potential. And so
Absolutely.
I think it's super important that no matter where you feel, whether you feel very strongly in one party or another, or certain actions should be taken or not, to put that into your business is a very, very challenging thing. And I know people want to do it because they're like, I'm a business owner, I can do whatever I want to. That's the power of it. The problem is there's a difference between you can do it and you should do it.
Right.
And so your personal opinion should stay your personal opinions when it comes to the business world, and your business should run independently of how you feel personally.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that's a really important thing that people sometimes forget, and it comes back to bite them.
I couldn't agree more with that. You don't want to alienate people. Like, look, you started your business because you have a passion for this or that, or you're really good at this, or you want to help homeowners, or you want to clean their house, or you want to be a dentist. Well, you focus on that. You build your business because you're really good at that. You're really passionate about that. You follow through, you make connections, you build relationships, right? Loyal clients, loyal patients. And that's where we have to stay focused, right? And not get too far into the weeds. So that's a great point, Nick.
Yeah, and just one quick thing with that. I've always said I really don't care what actors or politicians or athletes,
Mhm.
what party. I don't care what party they vote for. I don't care what their political views are. In fact, I don't really want to know them
Mhm.
because I don't want that to influence the work.
Mhm.
I want to listen to music and go, I like that music or I dislike that music, regardless of the person and their personal opinions or their movies or their acting or whatever it is. I don't want to be influenced negatively. We're like, gosh, I like that how that person thinks personally. So therefore, I don't really like their music, but I'm gonna spend my money on that because I like how they think personally. That's kind of silly.
Yep.
Or vice versa. If I want to spend my money where it's things that I enjoy, right? And I don't want to even know what their political views are. I don't want to know what their view on the war is. I don't want to know what their view is on this or that. I want to enjoy their work. And I think as business owners, we have to take that same mindset. It's up to us to be neutral. Now, once you get to know a customer and you may see they say something that leads you to like, okay, hey, we happen to have the same perspective on this. That's fine. That could be a natural thing that could flow out of that.
Sure.
Or you might find out, hey, I think we're probably on the different sides of the aisle here. That's fine. That would let you know, hey, I'm not gonna open that can of worms, right? But that's something you deal at a one-on-one basis, not at the front of the platform.
That's right. Yep. Very, very good point. And when we think about, what are we doing here, right? Your brand, your backyard in economic challenges, right? Environments that we can't control. I think about the relationships. We've already touched on this with existing customers. They are our most reliable revenue source. We've already mentioned offer flexibility, value driven pricing. And then a couple episodes prior to this, we talked about loyalty programs. How do you see that being so important in challenging economic times?
I think it becomes more and more important in our society in general. If you think about, gosh, I remember when I was growing up, and again, I'm in my mid 50s now, so I remember every once in a while you'd have something that would have some kind of promotion, like Subway, if you got a certain number of subs, and that kind of went away. Now it seems like every restaurant has some kind of promotion, right? Here you get special deals on our app. They're driving you to the app, or this discount, or you get points. Airlines do that. It seems like everybody now has some type of thing because it's become so competitive in pretty much every environment.
Yep.
And I think there's some businesses now are starting to realize that are outside of the restaurant or retail world. They're starting to realize, wait a minute, I've worked really hard to generate these 100, 2, 3, 500 customers, whatever it is. Why am I not incentivizing them to come back to me? Why am I not incentivizing them to help us spread the word and help us grow the business? So I think that there's a real opportunity for loss there, and there's a real opportunity for people to explode and grow their business fast by incentivizing those things.
Yeah.
I've always said some customers you don't need to incentivize them. They're just going to be a walking billboard for you. The problem is that's 2 or 3% of your customers, right? And I don't want just 2 or 3% of my customers being a raving lunatic about my brand. I want all of them. I know it's never going to happen, but I want it to at least be on their mind for 75% of them, because collectively that generates way more opportunity for traction than just counting on those one or two people that are just champions for you.
Right. 100%. What came to mind as you were talking about that is the gas station that I love to go to. And, you spend a certain amount of money and then you rack up, 10% or 10 cents off or 20 or whatever the loyalty program is. So I always go there for gas. Even if I have to drive out of the way, right? I'm going to spend money there. I'm going to rack up my loyalty program because especially right now when gas is, what, 80 a gallon. I mean, depending on where you are in the country listening to this. But yeah, I want to save 10 cents a gallon as much or as
Mhm.
often as I can. So very, very good point there, Nick.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about, as we wrap up here, strategic marketing and the importance of, do you market? Do you not? Do you double down? Do you pivot? Like, what should you do with your marketing and advertising and community outreach? So, regardless of the economic times, you are still building your brand. You still exist. You're still in front of your loyal clients, but you're still out there in front of new audience, new customers, new patients. What do you do, Nick?
Well, listen, I think there's three paths that people can take. I think most businesses see two paths. They see the path is either I completely shut it off or I just keep doing what I'm doing now. And that's really short-sighted. There's three paths. One, you can accelerate,
Mm-hmm.
okay? That's a viable path. You can accelerate and spend more money. Two is you can adapt how you spend that money. And so you may draw back some, but you may cut some things and say, hey, that's not working as well anyhow. And because of certain circumstances, I'm going to pull back on this one, but I'm going to put more over here. So I'm going to reallocate. But the death kiss for a business is to cut it down. When you start cutting down and you start kind of shutting it off, so to speak, that it, you know, it's like people are going, well, the economy's a little tight, so I'm stopping putting money into my retirement. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to just stop contributing to my retirement funds and to my mutual funds.
Yeah.
And then they just flatline. They think, I'll get back to that, but it's so easy to just never get back to it. And we just have to be disciplined through that. So I think it's okay to look at something, Jeremy, and say, hey, we got to take a look at every source we're doing. Does this source actually still make sense? We're spending X amount of dollars on this, and it really doesn't seem to be getting as much return as we wanted it to, or doesn't seem to be doing the job we wanted to. I'm 100% okay with people taking that money and saying, where else could we put that to maybe get us a little more bang for the buck right now? But
Mhm.
boy, I will tell every business out there, I'm like, you just go, well, I'm just going to cut that outright, save that money. I'm like, that's like a retail store. Well, I'm just not going to buy inventory. Just not going to buy inventory. So when people come in, they go, hey, my favorite thing isn't here anymore. Yeah, we just trying to cut back a little bit so we're not ordering stuff anymore. We're just using the inventory we have now. People are going to stop coming to you.
That's right.
And so we have to be aware of, you can accelerate, you can reallocate and change some things around, but you cannot cut it off totally and just start eliminating things. That is the worst possible thing you can do as a business.
So, a couple thoughts that I have here surrounding this topic is, and I just had a business that I was meeting with a couple weeks ago, and they're like, yeah, Jeremy, it's a little bit slow right now. And so I've really got to cut back or eliminate my marketing. And so, what
Yeah.
that makes no sense to me because it's like you're already slow. So I get that you want to cut back or you need to reallocate or you need to pivot a little bit. But talk about cutting off your right arm to save your left arm. It makes no sense. And when you're thinking about building a brand, being involved in your community, it's very much a here today, gone tomorrow. Like if
Mhm.
they don't consistently see you, it's the same reason that you still see Ford truck commercials and Starbucks and Apple Computer, and the list goes on and on and on. Regardless of economic times and outside environments, those companies, those brands, they have built something and they're going to stay in front of you regardless. And so I think about the move here is about pivoting. When times are great, sure, we might have a little bit more to spend, a little bit more to try new things with our marketing strategy, right? Throw more against the wall and just see what sticks. Kind of play and have some fun with your marketing strategies. I think that's great. You should do that if and when you can. But when times are tough and you do want to pull tight on the purse strings, that doesn't mean shut the valve off because your marketing really operates like those old school pumps, Nick, where it's like you're out there with the handle and why are we pumping for so long, so hard, so fast? Well, we're building pressure. See, we have to get that water to the surface, don't we? But when
Yep.
the water comes to the surface, does that mean we stop pumping? No, we might be able to scale back a little bit and just more of a steady, consistent flow. That is how you view your marketing. What are the efficient ways? What is your targeted audience? And who do you need to be in front of regardless?
Yeah. And I think that the reason this is such a challenging topic and why we spent a number of hours over the last several months talking about it at different points. I've never once met a business, Jeremy, that wanted to spend money on advertising. Never once. Now, there's businesses that understand I need to, it's a necessity, but kind of people view it as a necessary evil, right? It's kind of like paying taxes and buying car insurance, and so it's a necessary evil. So the problem is with advertising, when things are going well, most people are like, well, I don't need to advertise now because things are going so well. I'm just wasting money. I'm already busy. This is a waste of money.
Yep.
But then when it's going poorly, they're like, well, I don't want to spend any money right now because things are tight. I can't spend the money. So no
Mhm.
matter where you're at in the equation, it's always a bad time to spend money. And it's like if you talk to a financial advisor, they'll tell you like whether you have a lot of excess revenue coming in or income coming in or you have very little, the time to start investing money is now and do it consistently. And if you don't have $1,000 a month to put in $10 a month.
Right.
If you have 10,000 a month, put in 10,000, but don't wait until some future point. You're killing yourself. And I think that's how businesses have to look at advertising
Yeah.
is you have to do it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. Like I tell my kids all the time, you don't have to want to get out of the pool, but you have to. You don't have to want to go to bed, but you have to. You don't have to want to do it, but you have to do it. And as a business owner, we will continue to try to beat that theme of, as a business owner, you have to advertise, you have to market your business to get your name out and to keep your name out to continue to grow your business. Otherwise, other people are going to take those customers. It's that simple.
Be consistent, be persistent, be recognizable, because no matter the environment, people are going to eat, people are going to keep their lights on, people that have excess money. There's always people with money. There's a reason that they say the rich just get richer. Okay, so maybe that's your targeted strategy during down times, right? You're the furniture store. Okay, you might not be marketing to anybody and everybody. That's okay. Not everybody's going to buy a $5 or $10 new couch or refrigerator or new giant TV, but there are people who are, and that will never stop. So this is more about being very strategic, very methodical about how you're operating your business. Think through things. Have a plan. If you're a new business, do you have kind of that emergency plan that you're like, okay, let's get ready, let's bear down, let's look at this plan, let's start pivoting, or let's start the prep work because we might need to.
Yeah. I think you have to just go into the option of sales are going to come in slower than I thought they were. Expenses are going to be higher than I thought they were going to be. I'm going to face more challenges, whether my business is brand new or it's established. And I think the businesses that approach it that way, and again, even if you're not a brand new business, to be able to say, yeah, I got to prepare, I got to be ready, to deal with the challenges and to deal with things that are outside of my control and deal with it,
Yeah.
right? And that means this is the point I wanted to finish with on my end today, Jeremy. You have to be willing to swallow your pride. You got to be willing to say, hey, this was your idea, but that idea doesn't mean anything right now because things have changed.
Yep.
Or it was a great idea, but the local clientele didn't eat it up the way you thought they would. And so it's spoken. So whether it's an outside thing or a miscalculation on your part, when you are ready to willing to pivot, adjust, make those changes, you can then take those opportunities and explode in that area, right? So there are some businesses that did really well during COVID. They exploded in success during COVID. There's some businesses that will explode during economic downturns, where other people are struggling, they're excelling. So it's the mental side, being willing to do those things.
And as we wrap up here, Nick, I think there are always things that we can't control. And on the flip side, there are always things we can. So as we wrap up here, really good information. Hopefully we're getting our listeners, a little different perspective, or maybe a little bit different angle to how they see their business or the economic environments and things they can or can't control, right? Have a plan in place. Execute your plan. Be willing to adapt. And as we close out, Nick, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think just understand, guys, running a business is hard. Being in corporate America is hard, right? So no matter how you slice it, working for somebody else, work yourself, it's all hard. So it's pick your hard. But I will say it is incredibly rewarding when you're running your own business. And so, yes, the headaches are different, the rewards are different, but it's worthwhile. And if you really are inclined to, hey, I want to run a business, then let's get really good at it and let's run it well. And so we have success. And that's why we're doing this podcast. We're just trying to help people be a little more successful in some of the mistakes we've made along the way. So I would just encourage everyone to pick your hard.
Yeah, I love that. Pick your hard. Well, Nick, this has been fun. We appreciate all of our listeners and all of the support out there. We're going to keep coming with some new topics and new information, and we're having a great time with this. Again, our goal is not to monetize this, but simply to educate, to almost give back. Like, we've got successes and failures that we've experienced. And if we can help one business owner, one marketing professional, or one student who listens and takes some nuggets away from this and can implement or share with their parents that run a business, right? Or their brother that runs a business, or maybe their favorite business that they like to support, that's all we want to do. So, Nick, great to see you.
Good to see you again. Tell your assistant she's doing a great job. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.